Marco. Can you guys hear me loud and clear? Polly. Hey, bro. What's going on, everybody? Cool Gamer, Emily, Roll the Hated, April Tobin, DJ, Rogue Knox. How's everybody doing today? I hope we're having a wonderful evening. Or a wonderful, evening. Evening. It is. Evening. I was fixing my coffee and I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh, it's 7 o'clock. I better hurry up. Let me exit out of this. So today we're going to talk about nature versus nurture. And in the description below, I actually put the website that I'll be using to talk about nature versus nurture. How you guys? How's the weather everywhere? Where I'm at, it's teens. It is 17 degrees where I'm at. Smitty, how are you doing, my friend? Oh man, must be lucky. That's nice to hear, April. 70 degrees. I'm jealous. 56 where you're at, Emily? That must be nice. All right, so we're gonna get this going. See, 70. I wish it was 70 here. So let me share screen. Let's get this going. So you guys can see it. Able to see what I'm reading. So nature versus nurture. The expression nature versus nurture describes the question of how much a person's characteristic are formed by either nature or nurture. Nature means innate biological factors, namely genetics, while nurture can refer to upbringing or life experience more generally. That's how I always figured. Like the other day when I was talking about, what was I talking about? Can somebody help me? when I brought up nature versus nurture, I was talking about a specific subject. I can't remember, but I brought up nature versus nurture, and and I said nurture is something that's learned, nature is genetic. Okay, and I was on point. Traditionally, nature versus nurture has been framed as a debate between those who argue for the dominance of one source of influence or the other. But contemporary experts acknowledge that both nature and nurture play a role psychological development and interact in complex ways. Oscar, how you doing? So we're talking about nature versus nurture, okay? Yes, prison mental health. When I was talking about mental health while incarcerated, I brought up nature versus nurture. But a lot of people, like the smallest things that we talk about, plays a role mentally on how we act on a daily basis. So you wouldn't think that nature versus nurture plays a role in your life. It does, you just don't realize it. Okay. So the wording of the phrase nature versus nurture makes it seem as though human individuality, personality traits, intelligence, preferences, and other characteristics must be based on either the genes people are born with or the environment in which they grew up. The reality, as scientists have shown, is more complicated. And both these and other factors can help account for the many ways in which individuals differ from each other. Okay. What does the phrase nature versus nurture get wrong? The words nature and nurture themselves can be misleading. Today, genetics and environment are frequently used in their place, with one's environment including a broader range of experience than just the nurturing received from parents or caregivers. Further, nature and nurture or genetics and environment. Hold on. All right, I'm back. Further, nature, nurture, or genetics and environment do not simply compete to influence a person, but often interact with each other. Nature and nurture work together. Finally, individual differences do not entirely come down to a person's genetic code or developmental environment to some extent. They emerge due to a messiness in the process of development as well. Okay, so they get wrong. Let's see how they work together. A person's biological nature can affect a person's experience of the environment. For example, a person with genetic disposition toward a particular trait, such as aggressiveness, may be more likely to have a particular life experience, including perhaps receiving negative reactions from parents or others. Or a person who grows up with an inclination toward warmth and sociability may seek out the elicit more positive social responses from peers. These life experiences could, in turn, reinforce an individual's initial tendencies, nurture, or life experience. More generally, may also modify the effects of nature. For example, by expanding or limiting the extent of which naturally bright child receives encouragement, access to quality education, and opportunities for achievement. That's a lot of reading. What's going on, Marion? How you doing today? So, I could be wrong. So this is, in they're talking about this in more of, how do I explain? It's like you're seeing a psychiatrist and you're talking about it. How are you doing, Michelle? So far, does anybody agree with what I'm reading about nature versus nurture? Or does anybody have an understanding of what I'm reading, nature versus nurture? Yes, they're talking in a clinical sense. I wish, I truly wish they would break down. So, does anybody understand what nature versus nurture means? Okay. Does anybody have a basic understanding? ZD, how you doing? Okay. So, nature versus nurture. What I read so far, are you getting a basic understanding of what nature versus nurture is? Put a 1 in chat if yes, put a 2 in chat if no. Okay. Just call me Hen. Hello. It's good seeing you. So, nature is what you're born with, your genetics. Okay. Nurture is what you learn over time. It, can we understand that? Or how do I explain it? Not understand it. But do you see where I'm coming from? Nature is what you're born with genetically, and nurture is what you learn over time. So, like, say for example, okay. So, say for example, April, okay, is you you grew up in a nice neighborhood with your mother and father, and they taught you how to focus on school, get good grades, be social, and chase your dreams, right? And then me, I grew up in the projects, single family household, right? We both haven't known that nature, we're supposed to be acting a certain way. But when it comes to nurture and how we're raised, we'll act differently. Unless we have a group of people around us to guide us. That's what nurture is. And that's when I was talking about prison mental health, the mental health in the prison system. nature versus nurture. That's why I mentioned it. Some people weren't here for that, you know. And the thing is, right, is nature versus nurture plays a big role in all our lives. We just don't realize it. It's just like a lot of things plays a role in our lives. We just don't realize it because we go on with it. You know, like for example, how many of you in here, yes, all regions can shape you. Example, people from the South could have a different social norms than say people from the Northwest. Yes. What's going on, George? How you doing, my neighbor and friend? So, as I was saying, right? So, say for example, okay, I was agreeing with Emily and it threw me off. Hold on. Let me get back to my thought. Uh, don't you hate that when you're on when Carne Corso's mom, hello, when you're see they believe they believe a lot of men in prison have undiagnosed borderline personality. See that ah, I think they have more than that. I don't think it's that. They have issues, but I don't think it's that. Just saying. Yeah, social norms. Okay. All right. It's no, George. We're comparing traits. We're comparing traits, like how people act differently, because a lot of people in the South have what they call Southern hospitality. Nicole, how is your little one doing, if I may ask? I hope well. I haven't heard from you. So we say for example, North Carolina compared to New Hampshire, right? The difference in people how people act. I'm from the South, and depending on where you live in the South, there's Southern hospitality. It's like if I see you broke down on the side of the road, I pull over and help you out. That's Southern hospitality. That's good. I'm happy to hear that. She's doing good. That's great to hear. That's awesome, Nicole. Just what just wanted to know, and that's awesome. So I'm almost done with nature versus nurture. Okay. But a lot of people get it confused, you know, are confused with it because it's not talked about enough, or we just don't know. We weren't ever taught about it because it's a debate. It's not really talked about because there's no scientific term to it. It's just an idea that was created, nature versus nurture. Books were written on it. psychologists talk about it and they debate it, you know, which is understandable. But always remember, nature is our genetic disposition. Yeah, I know you did. I know you did, Emily. But I read it and I still couldn't remember where I left off. I said it in my head and I still couldn't. Yes, Kanye. A sociopath is created and a psychopath is born. So a sociopath is nurture and a psychopath is nature. Because nature is what you're born with. Nurture is something you learn over time. That's a sadistic way to look at it. Yeah. Not saying everybody is a sociopath or a psychopath, but there are some out there. So, but I'm going to open up the panel for anybody that wants to come up. Yes, Emily, you're on point. Nature is pre wiring, nurture is the influence of external factors. Copy, paste. Anybody who wants to come up, the panel is open. Just click the link. Anybody can come up. Anybody. You are free. Okay. Oh, I got to do this. Give me just a second. Do you guys get that little heart next to the name? I'm going to take care of that right now. I'm going to get rid of that heart emoji. Give me just a second. Customization, live interactions, save. There we go. Send message. So, did I get rid of that heart emoji? Well, he's more than welcome to come up if he wants to. I've never said he can't come up. You can come up too, ZD, if you want to. Connie Corso's mom can come up. Is Hen still here? Just call me Hen knows about hospitality. Hold on. I wonder if she's still around. So who wants to come up? I've already talked about what I needed to talk about. The lives that I've been doing lately haven't been very long because I'm trying to open up panel. And that's what makes the channel more interesting when people come up and have discourse. So George is one of my great friends. He's a neighbor and a great friend, and we play cribbage every single, well, not every night if he's got plans, but almost every night. And you know, I might get my ass handed to me in cribbage, but it's the communication, you know, the and the banter back and forth. You know, we talk, we vent to each other if there's issues going on. We talk and have an entertaining time. You know, that's what friends do. They get together, they hang out and talk and get things off their chest and play cards or whatever, and then go on about the day and we forget about the game. Yes, George is still wiping the floor with me. Yep. It is what it is. It happens. Yes, the info part gets the conversation started. That's correct, Emily. So I start with the information, and then people come up on panel and we have conversation. And that's why I like to do this is open panel. Sometimes the info that I talk about is more personal here in my heart that I relate to. So I can actually talk about it for an hour with nobody on panel. Then there's some things that I don't relate to. Like, I understand nature versus nurture. I understand nature versus nurture. It's just that I don't know. Like, I understand it, but I don't. I'm still learning about it. I've been doing a lot of research on it, and I can agree with what it's saying, but still, it is what it is. But anybody want to come up? If not, George. I don't mind coming up there, but you have a topic for me. I don't think this. uh, no, this is the conversations we have. This is not the right place. Nope. Oh, here comes my buddy, Ro.
What's up, man? I can't leave you hanging.
It's good. It's been a while since you've been up on panel.
Well, I mean, I'm such a, chattermouth all the time. I never let anybody else talk. So, I figure I'd be like, well, let the other people need to be up there more than I do because I'm happy with my insanity. And let's face it, my insanity comes from, of course, like you being a Neanderthal. It's just, it's more accepted than when the little people like do squirrel insanity, talking about CIA agents out in their yard or something like that. So people just let me be insane. Quite nice. I'm happy with it. But
So
no, sorry, go ahead.
you being a former police officer
Yeah.
and military, so you had a basic understanding of nature versus nurture.
Sure.
And plus, being around people that have different personalities than you do on a daily basis,
Yeah.
You
Well,
have an understanding of nature versus nurture.
that comes into play whether it was my firefighter days or law enforcement, whatever. It's because you're being exposed to people of all walks of life, right? So you get to kind of feel like what behaviors you see in people that were probably learned from their family or circle of influence growing up or as a young adult or later. You see that, and then you kind of get to know like that guy was just destined. So the nature part, in my opinion, like your definition, readout definition is, of course, the baseline. But what
Yeah.
it comes down to is, in my opinion, is that if you have a family that is going to raise you a certain way, you're probably going to be that way pretty much, unless extenuating circumstances happen. But if you already have a nature to that way, then it's going to be even more enhanced. So take me for an example, because it's anecdotally the probably the best. I mean, I'm the person I've known the longest, right? So you take me, I am default aggressive. One of the issues I have is that I don't have a flight instinct. Like a lot of people have a fight or flight. I don't have a flight. I immediately just attack anything that startles me or scares me. It's a problem. So now you take that and you take my nurturing side of it, where my mom, being a single mom, wanted me to be exposed to good men, so I had role models. Well, in her mind, she's thinking, man, I like the way those guys on those firefighter calendars look. They save people, they're great. So I had the Big Brothers of America program. I was exposed to firefighters and first responders of all kinds, police officers, EMTs, stuff like that pretty early. So those were my role models. So it encouraged my nature by nurturing those aspects that were naturally in me, which made me turn to kicking down doors and dragging people out of, crime stuff or fires or cars or whatever. Like it nurtured my nature. So
Yep.
this is actually a great topic in my opinion. I don't mean to chat so much, but it's a great topic in my opinion because I think a lot of people forget their nature because they want to pretend that their nurture has made them a better person. So they fight a lot of their instincts.
Yep.
And that's where you get people that have to turn to drugs, alcohol, other types of behaviors that aren't healthy because they're fighting their nature. Okay, so you probably heard me say this before, and I don't know if anybody else has, but your nature, you got to think of it like a pit bull you had to adopt, right? If you just chain it up in the backyard and never pay attention to it, eventually it's going to eat a fucking landscaper, right? Or a mailman or something. So every once in a while, you got to take your nature out and play with it. Even if you don't like it, say you don't like something about your nature. Every once in a while, you got to go out and satiate it. Like say for me, I'm a relatively default violent person, right? So every once in a while, I either go to the gun range or go hunting back in my day, or sometimes I'd just be like, hey, buddy, a friend of mine or somebody, like, let's see who could win now that we're 30. And we just throw some hands. So it got that out so that it wouldn't build up the denying of my nature until it exploded out of my control.
That's
so whether it's an addictive personality or whatever you got that's in your nature, you got to kind of satiate that beast, or eventually it will eat you or another person.
That's the reason why I tell people to talk about their problems, then let it build up.
Right.
Because when things happen, when people do us wrong, and if we don't say anything right there, and we're going to just keep letting it fester inside us. Before you know it, we snap and do something that we regret doing.
Yes. Fortunately, I had enough role models in my life mainly because of the Big Brothers America program, which I don't know if that's still a thing, but it sure needs to be, right? So because of the guys I was exposed to very early on when I was coming in, 6 foot by 7th grade, that kind of thing, like coming into my power as a man, right? So because of those guys, I didn't lose my temper very often. I always was able to keep it under control, whether it was burning it off in the weight room or just running or football or whatever, something to get that stuff off.
Before we go further,
yeah,
Emily made a great point because you mentioned alcohol and, substance abuse. She said alcoholism could be an example of nature in that it can run in your family, and the choices you make can either inflame or avoid that.
Right. And here's the saddest part I learned in meeting a lot of these people who had made bad choices. They made uninformed choices because they had denied their nature and said, no, just if I have a drink once in a while, it doesn't mean I'm an alcoholic. But they wouldn't examine the fact that a vast majority of people in their family had fallen into alcoholism. So they would ignore it. And then before they knew it, it creeped up to where they got to, put off half a bottle of vodka before they can get to sleep. So if they'd have been informed and informed themselves by observation or talking to somebody and say, hey man, you probably ought to watch it, limit yourself because that runs in your family and you've heard excuses your whole life. And that's almost like nurturing. Telling somebody that has a negative nature or a nature that can be negative, giving them rationalizations and stuff like this can add to the likelihood that they will fall under some sort of addictive personality or behavior.
Yep.
But no, that's a big thing. I mean, you could use just about anything. For example, I've got a friend who spends almost half his income on a race car. And that's what he does as a hobby. He is addicted to racing. Just turning left and going fast, that's all he does. And it's cost him several relationships, all this kind of stuff. And I said, hey, Kenny, you gotta realize you're addicted to trying to get your hair set on fire from friction, right? Like you need to start not nurturing this addiction you have. Because he lives in a crappy trailer with a crappy truck that tows his big fancy, his car is worth more than his house. So this is a guy who, yes, has fun with what he does and everything, but a lot of his life goes neglected so that he can maintain this addiction. Whether it's that or drugs or alcohol or sex. You know what it's like to be addicted to women, right?
Yeah.
This is part of the Neanderthal nature. So whatever it is, anything you're addicted to and you're letting it go rampant, you are nurturing it and letting it go on a bad version of that to where it's a destructive behavior. If you can focus that behavior in a positive way, like my violent nature, I focus it in kicking in doors and, pulling people that are too big for other people to rescue out of buildings or whatever the case may be, then that's a positive, usually net positive situation. I've only lost my temper twice, and both times it was very negative to the person. Well, I guess 3 times, but on the other side of it, I regretted it every time because I let the animal get out of control. And the way this, I don't know how deeply you go into this, but the nature side of things is your limbic system, your hormones, your moods, even love can be boiled down to chemicals. Your body releases.
Excuse me, Viper. I understood what you were talking about. I read your comment. I understood what you were talking about. Just saying. And welcome,
Oh,
Golden.
I haven't been paying attention to the comments. My bad.
So he was talking about this is an interesting topic because it does bring up is a unaliver born or made debate.
Unaliver. Gotta love YouTube.
So Golden
Well.
says redirect the negative.
Yes. God, I love ZD. I'll be listening in from that for now. Ro, I'm gonna go make my husband a sandwich. That's a good woman right there. No, I'm just teasing. Just teasing. Love ZD. But no, the killer born or made, there is, that is actually a great discussion, because you probably feel it as well as I do. If it wasn't for my nurturing, it would be very easy for me to just delete people. You know, if I had a nurturing environment that nurtured violence and negative violence and low morality, I think it's very possible. So I think a lot of times killers, what you're born with is what potential you have and tendencies you have. And how you're nurtured, I believe, is how much that tendency gets presented in your personality. I mean, that's just the way I've always seen it when dealing with lots of different people on their worst day. Because let's face it, if you're a first responder of any kind, most of the people you deal with, it's on their worst day.
Yep.
So, and a lot of times they just want to talk about what they did wrong while they're in the back of the ambulance or the back of the squad car or waiting outside where their building, you know, their house burns down the rest of the way, whatever the case may be. Sometimes they just need to go, and you realize they may have made a bad choice because they didn't have anybody to talk to. And because they couldn't get those concepts out, they built up inside until that pit bull ate a landscaper. I'm just saying. Been meaning to get one of those sandwich makers. Okay, I already get called a chauvinist, so I shouldn't laugh too hard on that.
Yeah. So thank you, Ro, for coming up here. Dude, that was some very insightful stuff you just said.
Well, it comes from half a century of observing humans. Like, that's my pastime, is just watch people and try and figure out why did that person do that? Right.
But the thing is you've lived a more interesting life in things you've done.
Yeah.
You didn't pick one career.
No.
You've had
simultaneous
multiple
careers.
Yes. Military, firefighter, police, whatever else.
Mechanic, man whore, you know, just depends on what, you know, decade we're talking about. But no, there's a
I think Chinese that one has been your whole life.
Not since all the medical stuff happened. You know, women were like, "You're poor, you don't have a good car, and you can't walk right." I don't know. Yeah, you're tall, but that's about it. So, but no, there's a Chinese proverb that says, it's simply, I think it's Chinese, it's just simply, "May you live in interesting times." And it's kind of like an insult. It sounds like, oh, cool, I'll live in interesting times. But if you go through history, most interesting times are times of strife and war. Expert man whore. Retired. Just saying. Retired. But no, whenever your nurture is a negative, or gets nurtured, your nature gets nurtured into a negative thing, those are interesting times. It's not boring, even if it is destructive. So, I mean, that's where that insult comes from. May you live in interesting times. It's the whole, ideally, we think that we should probably live in a relatively comfortable existence. But when we make the wrong choices or the really right choices, your life becomes way more interesting. Not always good, but more interesting. So I don't know. That's just the nature versus nature versus nurture thing has been the source of many arguments with me, because the main argument, if I'm not mistaken, for most people is which one is more important. If you have a negative aspect to your nature, are you just doomed, or is there a way to overcome it?
I agree.
You know,
I think there's a way to overcome it, to be honest. There's always a way to overcome something.
right.
You just sometimes you got to fight harder than others do. Some people have to fight harder than others to overcome specific situations.
Right. And I don't care how badass you think you are and how strong you think you are.
There's
I
always
know.
someone more out there.
Well, there's that too, but you're always going to need help to overcome your nature.
Yep.
So I used to think I was an island, I could take anything, and too many things piled up on me. And I did. I almost broke one time. So, well, I did kind of. Physically, I broke. But that was a big wake up call to, like, I can't live the rest of my life without some assistance. Whether it's talking to my buddy about how I feel, or, you know, someone having to come in and build something because I can't do it anymore. So the realization of having my nature being, I don't need anybody's help, I'm here to help everyone else. Having to fight that after being nurtured for nearly half a century is quite the issue, to be honest. And a lot of people are probably struggling it in their way, whether they're 19 years old or 75 years old.
So Michelle said she agreed with what I said, but she really likes your perspective. She likes Rose's perspective.
It's nice to know what Sasquatch is thinking once in a while, right?
Yep.
Yeah, with all the hair on
when ZD said come up because you used to be a police officer, I was like, but he also used to be military. He was also he's a veteran, and he also did firefighter. You know,
yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, so you know, we might joke around and fall off the subject, but the thing is we all have a brain and we know how to use it and have intellectual conversations when needed.
Right.
Well,
don't forget, after the Army, I was a truck driver.
So Vibrance, yeah, truck driver too. So you meet a lot of people and deal with a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like pit bulls. They can be the sweetest of not. They can be deadly. We have groups here that raise them from pups to attack and fight. Just a comparison, kind of.
Right.
Yes.
But I also have a friend, a mechanic friend of mine, that, well, and an ex-firefighter too. Anyway, he has 2 pit bulls right now, and they're giant lap dogs. They'll lick you to death. They're because he raised them in a very loving, nurturing environment. Their nature is a gladiator breed. And if something comes on the property that might be a threat, yes, they will, do unspeakable things to it. But to anything that's not a threat, they absolutely love it. They love the horses. They love the people. They love the kids. It really is quite amazing how those pit bulls, knowing their gladiator nature, can be so loving when they're not in danger. So that's a prime example of how nurturing can counterbalance the nature of your
Rody
limbic
Gal,
system.
how you doing, Rody Gal?
Hey,
He's one of my day ones, Rody Gal.
Yeah.
Since I started this channel.
Yeah, I haven't been here that long.
She's one of my first mods. Actually, probably my first mod.
Speaking of which, why is my camera doing its focus thing?
We've really zoomed in.
Yeah.
We can see the gray hairs.
Yeah, they're getting a little ridiculous, aren't they?
There you go.
Yeah. I don't know what that was all about.
I need one of those cameras.
This one's not bad. It's a little Logitech something or another.
But is that the
1080
zoom in
Pro.
and zoom out, right?
Yeah, it's got zoom in, zoom out, exposure, focus, all that kind of stuff.
All right. Where do you
It's
get
up
it?
on one of my 5 screens. I got it off Amazon. It's Logitech.
Okay.
Most of my gear is Logitech, except for my keyboard and mouse. That's Razer.
Rogue Knox is like, zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. Better watch that. I don't think I've trimmed my nose hairs in a few days.
Hey, Cane Corso. Gray hair on a person shows wisdom. Shows wisdom, in my opinion. Unless you're a teenager with gray hair.
I've just got the beard and a few in the hair. That the big hair is still pretty, brown or gets dark sometimes. But I don't care. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, one of my lady friends from high school, she was coloring her hair for a long time. And I told her, I said, stop that. When she hit 50, I was like, you got to stop doing that, because putting the gray hair, like, she's gorgeous. She looks kind of like Tina Fey and Natalie Portman had a baby, right? So she's just that gorgeous. And she's got this gorgeous hair, and like there's some gray in it. She was coloring it. I was like, you got to stop doing that, because that absolutely shows, it proves that you're the matriarch, you're the wise. And honestly, when she stopped coloring, I was like, yeah, I kind of wish we were still in high school again, Too bad you're married, but it was much more gorgeous to have those little streaks of gray in there, because I like honesty. I like people who can just accept who they are and present it, rather than having to, change everything up to hide who they are. But that's a personal preference.
Nature versus nurture.
Yeah, I like nature. I like
nurture. Nurture is social norms that you learn.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Which I've never really been forced to follow those that much, because people would rather let me get away with stuff than have, Sasquatch eat them, I guess. I mean, think about it. How often you just say whatever you want and nobody's really going to do anything about it. Because what are they going to do? Take your birthday away? When you're standing almost a foot above everybody, you're like, unless you uppercut me in the testicles, nothing that's going to go down, right? So I'm going to say what I believe or say what I think. And if I make you mad, sorry, let's not be in the same proximity, but that's it. Nobody ever does anything. But when I've noticed this when I've had friends that were like little dudes, like 5'4", 5'5" dudes, they're skinny. They would say something and people just bully them left and right, and I'd have to slap them, because like, that's your nature running away with you, of trying to, be dominant and, I don't know, pee on the fence or whatever. Like, you're letting your nature get ahead at the cost of somebody else. So you're letting your insecurities dominate another person because you weren't nurtured enough to counteract the nature of being insecure. I know it's kind of complicated, but that's how I see people.
Life is complicated.
Yes, not once you don't have to work anymore.
Life is complicated. No matter, yes and no. You still have to. You still have to figure things out on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for coming up, bro. You made this live more interesting. Having other people. Yes, people are complicated. Having your opinion and discourse come up here was appreciated, and you're always welcome, bro. I've always told you that.
I've told you I'm just a DM away if you ever need me to come up and make fun of people. So that's what I'm best at.
All right, big dog. I'm about to end this live out. I want to thank everybody for being here, showing up in chat, viewing at home. You guys are always welcome. The website I used for Nurture versus Nature is in the description below. If you guys want to buy me a coffee, my links are in the description below. If you hit the like button, subscribe button, I'd highly appreciate it. When this live is over, and you got any questions or comments, leave them below. This channel is where we talk about mental health. If you have any subjects you want me to talk about, life experiences, let me know, and I will share them. From my point of view. So
I'd have to limit some of mine because some of them can't be spoken of on YouTube. But also there's your Discord, of course, as well. So
yes, I do have Discord. Can somebody post my email address in the link in the chat, please, before we leave?
Yeah, because you actually have a text thing in there, suggestions, topic suggested or something like that.
Yes.
To where if you have something you would like discussed by multiple people, like pop it up there. And then,
yes,
of course, again, your Discord is set up so great because you have that one-on-one channel for if somebody just needs to talk, like, hey, my girlfriend just left me or my car just broke down. I'm just tired of crap. You just need to vent or talk serious, whatever. They got the one-on-one. And you got the group chats to where we can just kind of go off the rails and talk about just about anything we want to.
Yes.
Or have like that one night we had like who can tell the most weird story. And I gave an old firefighting story where it ended up with like an entire room of people throwing up and everybody was like, so, those conversations get pretty fun sometimes.
So if you haven't joined Discord and you want to join Discord, send me an email and I will give you the link. I don't post a link here just because, I just don't. So if you want to join Discord, send me an email and I'll drop you the link. You guys are an amazing community. You guys are the reasons why I continue to go live. Thank you for being here. Rody Gouds, good seeing you. All my mods and members of this community are the reasons why I do this. Vibrant, it's good seeing you in here, bro. Michelle, thank you for the compliment. Golden, thank you. I try to make these shows interesting. April Tobin, I try to keep these lives interesting and on topic. And sometimes, they don't go that great, but at least I make an effort. So, all right, guys. This is All Things Serious, saying love you guys, and I'm out of here. See you guys tomorrow night.